Chosen one, what I'm about to share may surprise you, even shake you to your core. If you're watching this right now, it's not by chance. It's not random. God has pulled you into this message because something powerful is happening in your life. You've felt it, that inner tug, that divine whisper you can't explain. The world may not see it yet, but deep inside, you know something is different about you. Something sacred, something rare. You've always felt out of place. Even in a room full of people, there's this quiet ache, like your soul knows it doesn't quite belong. You've been misunderstood, mislabeled, even mistreated, not because you were broken, but because you were chosen. And chosen ones often walk alone. Not because God has forgotten them, but because He's separating them, preparing them, positioning them for something greater than the world can comprehend. From a young age, you noticed things others didn't. You picked up on energies, motives, spiritual shifts in the room. While others were busy chasing validation, you were craving purpose. While they blended in, you stood out, even when you tried not to. There's a light in you that cannot be hidden. A light that both attracts and exposes. People stare at you. You've felt their eyes, their curiosity, even their judgment. But they don't understand what they're looking at. They're seeing the evidence of God's hand on your life, even if they don't have the language for it. You move differently because you are different. You carry spiritual weight. Your presence disrupts darkness, and even if people don't know why, they can feel it. You've gone through things that should have broken you. And they would have, if it weren't for God's covering. Others didn't survive what you survived. But you did. Not because you're lucky. Not because you're stronger. But because you're called. And that calling has preserved you through every storm, every betrayal, every silent battle you fought behind closed doors. People have counted you out, overlooked you, even laughed at you. But what they didn't realize is that God was hiding you on purpose. He was protecting your process, developing your character, sharpening your discernment, so that when the time comes, you won't just show up. You'll show up anointed. That isolation, it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. God needed to get you alone so He could train you without distractions. He needed to silence the noise so you could hear His voice. And now, you're seeing it. Little by little, the shift. The people you used to chase are no longer on your mind. The places you used to run to don't feel the same. You've grown. You've changed. And you're not going back. That discomfort you feel, that restlessness, it's your spirit waking up. It's your divine identity rising to the surface. God is pulling you higher. And yes, the climb is lonely, but the view will be worth it. Because where He's taking you, not everyone can follow. Not everyone will understand. And that's okay. You weren't called to fit in. You were called to stand out. You may not have had the perfect family. You may not have had the love you deserved. But you had God, and that was enough. He was there in your childhood trauma. He was there when you cried yourself to sleep. He was there when no one saw you. And He never stopped choosing you. Even when you doubted yourself, even when you wanted to quit, even when you felt forgotten, God never let go. You feel emotions deeply, not because you're weak, but because you were built to carry compassion. Your heart is wired for intercession, for truth, for light. You can't pretend. You can't fake it. You see things. You know things. You feel things in your gut before anyone else does. And that's not paranoia. That's spiritual discernment, one of the gifts God gave you for your journey. You might not have the loudest voice, but your spirit speaks volumes. When you walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. When you pray, heaven responds. When you move, the enemy trembles. Why? Because you're not just anybody. You're a divine weapon, a spiritual pioneer, a light carrier in a world full of darkness. The warfare you've experienced is a sign. The enemy doesn't waste time attacking people who aren't a threat. He's been trying to distract you, delay you, discourage you. But every time he threw something at you, you rose stronger. Every setback was actually a setup. Every detour was divine. and even your pain became a platform for power. So if you've been wondering, why is life so hard for me? Or, why do I always feel different? It's because you are. You're not ordinary. You're not random. You're chosen. And chosen ones are marked by signs. You've seen them your whole life. Patterns, numbers, dreams, synchronicities. Moments where God confirmed to you, you are mine. You've had visions you couldn't explain. Encounters you couldn't ignore. And even when you ran, something kept pulling you back to the truth. You were born for this. Your presence irritates demons. Your light exposes hidden agendas. That's why people lie on you. That's why jealousy surrounds you. That's why you've been betrayed by the very ones you loved. It's not about you. It's about the spirit you carry, the calling you walk in. And now more than ever, God is awakening that fire within you. This is the season of revelation. The veil is lifting. You're no longer doubting who you are. You're no longer shrinking for approval. You're standing up, stepping out, and claiming the space God carved for you long before you were born. Because this isn't just a video. This is confirmation. Your whole life has been pointing to this truth. You are a chosen one, set apart, protected, called, prepared, and the world is about to see why. The first sign is unmistakable, yet many overlook it. You've always felt like the black sheep. From childhood, you were the one who didn't quite blend in. Your thoughts were deeper, your questions more complex. While others followed trends, you followed your spirit. You weren't trying to rebel. You were trying to be real. You didn't care to please people just to be accepted, because something inside you whispered that your path was different. Maybe your own family misunderstood you. Maybe they even called you too sensitive or too intense. But deep down, you knew that your emotions were not a flaw. They were your compass. That inner world you carried was rich, spiritual, and ancient. That's not an accident. It's evidence that you've been touched by something divine. The black sheep isn't broken. The black sheep is usually the blueprint. The second sign is isolation. Not the kind you choose, but the kind that chooses you. Friends fall away. Conversations feel empty. Crowds make you feel lonelier than silence. It's not depression. It's a spiritual detox. God separates you to elevate you. The chosen ones go through seasons where they're stripped of everything familiar, not to harm them, but to refine them. You weren't meant to be influenced by the world. You were meant to influence it. And before God reveals you publicly, He will often hide you privately. So if you're in a season of loneliness, rejection, or spiritual quiet, don't panic. That's where God does His deepest work. That's where He downloads revelation, realigns your path, and prepares you for what's next. Your isolation is not a curse. It's your initiation. The third sign is your intuition. You know things before they happen. You sense people's true intentions, even when their words say otherwise. You walk into a room and feel the energy shift. You don't always have proof, but your gut rarely lies. That's not just emotional intelligence. That's spiritual discernment. God gave you eyes to see what others ignore. That's why surface-level conversations drain you. That's why fake people repel you. You weren't wired for shallow. You were born to dive deep. You read between the lines. You hear what's not being said. That gift protects you, even when it feels like a burden. And the more you trust it, the more it grows. The fourth sign is the spiritual warfare you faced. The attacks weren't random. They were strategic. Since childhood, the enemy has tried to take you out. The bullying, the trauma, the abuse, the fear, all of it designed to break your spirit before it bloomed. But it didn't work. You bent, but didn't break. You cried, but didn't quit. You questioned God, but never abandoned Him. And now you're realizing the level of attack on your life was in direct proportion to the level of calling over your life. You've been through hell, but you didn't come out empty-handed. You came out with oil, wisdom, power, authority. That's what separates you. The fifth sign is your compassion. People may call you too emotional or too soft, but that's because they don't understand the depth of your heart. You cry over injustices that others ignore. You feel the pain of strangers. You carry burdens in prayer for people you've never met. That's not weakness. That's spiritual strength. That's what makes you a healer, an intercessor, a bridge. You were given that heart for a reason. Because when God needs someone to stand in the gap, He looks for someone like you. Someone whose heart breaks for what breaks His. That level of compassion is not ordinary. It's a sign that God trusts you with spiritual responsibility. The sixth sign is the favor on your life. Even when you didn't earn it, doors opened for you that should have stayed shut. Opportunities came that you didn't qualify for. You survived situations that destroyed others. That's not luck. That's grace. That's God's hand guiding you, even when you couldn't see it. You've made mistakes. We all have. But somehow, you were protected. Somehow, you still landed on your feet. And the more you align with your purpose, the more that favor flows. It's not about perfection. It's about being chosen.